Ready to go for a swim? Well, it's official. Lake Oswego is no longer private, at least as of now. That could still change. But do you really want to go for a swim in Lake Oswego? Let's dig in. Should Lake Oswego remain public? That's the latest ruling as of November 13th of 2024. I want to hear your thoughts in this video, so please reply below. Let me know how you feel about Lake Oswego being public or private. It's okay to disagree. I'm going to share my thoughts at the end of this video. And by the way, if you are new to this channel, living in Oregon, we show you what it's like to live here, primarily focusing around the Portland metropolitan area. My name is Seth Marchant. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. And today I want to dig into something that's been going on for a pretty long time now, actually. It was 2012 that the city of Lake Oswego first ruled on the lake being private, disallowing the public from accessing the lake, which prompted a lawsuit by a couple of individuals, citing the Oregon Constitution, which says that navigable waterways, when Oregon was formed, when it became a state in 1859, any navigable waterways from that point should be open to the public. So a judge most recently agreed with that. So the judge has ruled that people must be able to access the lake from Millennium Plaza. Now this has gone back and forth over the past 12 years or so. So if you're watching this video, make sure and check the date on it. It may change by the time you watch this. People do watch our videos years later. We release new videos every single week. We've got over 100 videos on the channel. So if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, make sure and subscribe to us. A lot of the videos are showing you the area, introducing you to new areas, neighborhood tours, things like that. A lot of educational content. But this is something that's been popping up in the news, like I said, for quite a while now. I don't really feel like there's a big public debate on this. I don't see this online too much. You let me know if you see people debating whether or not Lake Oswego should be open to the public online. And again, to be clear, right now it's just from Millennium Plaza. So if you're looking to access Lake Oswego and you're looking up different places along Lake Oswego, you'll see that there is a swim park on the other side of the lake that is private, that's owned by the school district. Where I started this video at those steps actually is one of 3 places that are in question. The judge did rule that for whatever reason, there's a couple different reasons, I guess, that that area does not have to give access to the public, which is Sunleaf Plaza and Headleaf Walkway. So just know that technically you're not supposed to access the lake from anywhere, everywhere. Somebody correct me if they know, but I believe that technically the only thing that was private before was actually the access. In other words, you could maybe parachute into the lake and still be good. I don't know how you're going to get out, but the question here is the access to the lake. So you really are only, this ruling is really only going to give you one access point from Millennium Plaza. Now for me, one of the questions would be, do you want to go into the lake? One thing about Lake Oswego is I really, for the most part, do not consider it a lake. I consider it more of a reservoir. Difference between a reservoir, a lake, and a pond, of which we have a lot of those around here, is a reservoir is a body of water that was engineered. In other words, people did something to the lake or the body of water to be able to maintain it, which typically means expanding it. And Lake Oswego has been expanded by about somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. And for me, this is an important distinction because in Oregon, we have a lot of lakes here. We've got some really great lakes. We actually have the deepest lake in the United States. It's called Crater Lake. And for the most part, I would consider most of our lakes to be very, very clean. You kind of consider that about, I think most people kind of consider that to be the case for Oregon in general. I've lived here my entire life. Probably the biggest comment that we get for people coming from Arizona, Texas, California is like, look how green it is. That's like the most noticeable thing is how green it is here. It feels like Oregon has a very environmentally friendly vibe It's kind of always been that way since I was a kid. There's a lot of environmental activists here too. Not too long ago, we had a bunch of people hanging from St. John's Bridge from ropes over the Willamette River trying to block a ship owned by Shell, the oil company. So if you're not from here, I think most people just kind of naturally assume that everything is really, really clean here, and that's the case in a lot of places, but just not everywhere, including a lot of our water. So the major waterway that goes through Portland is called the Willamette River. And when I was growing up, some people colloquially referred to that as the Poo-lamette. It's because it wasn't uncommon to have sewage overflow getting into the river. So the river wasn't exactly the cleanest. Definitely know lots of people that would go wakeboarding in the river and have a case of the runs, diarrhea, the next day. It's gotten a lot better, but not all bodies of water around the Portland metropolitan area necessarily are going to be super clean. And so if we're talking about a pond or a reservoir, that's when you should probably question, is there any toxins in the water? Because it's ponds and reservoirs that don't have as much free-flowing water. Typically what defines a lake, part of it's going to be its depth, but lakes are also going to have a river that enters and exits, so you have a consistently flowing water, whereas a pond is usually just built up by like rainwater, and reservoirs, like I mentioned, are created by people, maintained by people, and so you typically you have a lot more stagnant water, and that's where the toxins build up, specifically algae. So kind of knowing that Lake Oswego is more of a reservoir, without even checking, I would lean towards assuming that the water is not going to be the cleanest. So that's going to be the case really anywhere in the Portland metropolitan area. And like I mentioned, there are actually a lot of lakes, reservoirs, ponds, whatever, bodies of water around the Portland metropolitan area. So for me, I don't necessarily even know if I would want to go swimming in that water. Now you can check. The Willamette River gets tested once a month, so you can check the water quality. And the water quality here is also maintained by a company called Lake Oswego Corporation, which is collectively owned by the people that live on the lake. I think they spend a couple thousand, $2,000, $3,000 a year to maintain that company. I'll include a link below too in the description if you want to see a link to the website that talks about the water quality in Lake Oswego. And I do consider myself to be somebody that's pretty good at deciphering things that I am not familiar with, data and concepts that I'm not familiar with, which is a lot of what was on this website. And I could not figure out if you would consider, based on the data, Lake Oswego to be to have clean water, to have high water quality. I did feed it into a couple of AI tools, and they also were not able to tell me if Lake Oswego has clean water. So if you're considering swimming in Lake Oswego, I mean, you may want to think twice. Let me read something from the website actually. And again, this will be in the link that I'll include of the description of this video. It says sampling data led the LOC, Lake Oswego Corporation, to initiate several water quality improvement projects over the years with the goal of reducing phosphorus to a point where cyanobacteria are not the dominant phytoplankton population. What we're talking about there is algae. So that's one of the toxins that you have to worry about with stagnant water and warmer water. You get these algae buildups. Also toxic to pets too. So don't think that you can just let your animals, your dogs, go running into some of these bodies of water either. And I'll also point out that the general manager from LLC, Lake Oswego Corporation, in a quote to our local news, KGW News, he also cited that a concern of making the lake public would be that the water is going to become even dirtier. It's going to become even more difficult to maintain. So it doesn't say on their website if the water quality is good or if it's toxic. There's nothing that says, here's the normal levels, here's where we're at, you know, kind of making it simple to understand. But from a few of the things that I've read, like what I just mentioned to you, sort of implies that the water is probably not as clean as you would want it to be if you're going to go swimming in it. So what are my thoughts? I promised you that I would share my thoughts on this matter. It's great to have a lot of things, as many things as we can in life, be inclusive and include as many people as possible. Definitely on board with all of that. Not everything can be or necessarily should be inclusive. Some things are going to have to be exclusive. And in a case like this, where we have this thing, this resource, that's not scarce. Like I said, there's lakes all around here, ponds, reservoirs. There's tons of water around the Portland metropolitan area. So there's a huge abundance of these things. So it's not a scarcity thing. And it's also being maintained by the people that live here. It would be one thing if there was tax dollars coming from the state to maintain one of the parks along Lake Oswego, for example. So I feel like to me, it is reasonable to keep the lake private when you have the people that are living around it maintaining it. And like I said, there's a lot of other waterways. I really, again, when I go online, I don't see a lot of people complaining about not being able to access Lake Oswego. Opinions, of course, don't matter in this case. It's going to come down to how the law is interpreted. And as we've seen so far, it's been tricky. It's gone back and forth. The most recent ruling can and probably will be appealed. So that's why I say it's probably not going to be final, but that's where we stand right now. Again, I want to know what your thoughts are. And if you're somebody that's thinking about taking the next steps, if you have questions about buying a home in Oregon, especially around a lake, I invite you to call, text, or email. Lake Oswego is not the only place in the Portland metropolitan area that actually has homes around a body of water. We do have other lakes, or like I said, they're really mostly reservoirs, but nevertheless suffice for the purpose that most people intend them for, which is the views. Most people move to Lake Oswego to see the water, not to swim in it. You might not know this, but I have another channel along with Paul, the other person on this channel, called Living on the Oregon Coast. Oregon Coast is not too far from here. We've helped a lot of people buy homes along the Oregon Coast, and the one thing I can say is the people that have the discretionary income, the number one thing that they always want is water views. There's just something about humans, human nature, our psyche, that we like to see water. And so people moving along the Oregon coast that have higher budgets, like I said, more discretionary income, that's usually a big part of what they're looking for, is to have some sort of water views. And the same is true in Lake Oswego. Now, real estate is non-fungible, meaning that no two pieces of real estate are the same, so it's always hard to put a value on things. So I'm kind of shooting from the hip here when I say this, but if I had to guess, roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of the people living along the lake are paying maybe 20-30% more for the homes with water views. So in other words, if you took a $2 million house, just maybe right behind one of these lakefront homes, the home in front of it is going to be, say, like at least $3 million. So in other words, people are paying a premium to be able to see the water. It's another reason why I think that these people should be able to maintain their own private lake. But if you do want water views, like I said, this isn't the only lake, and it's not the only lake that has homes on it. And not all of the homes necessarily that have water views in the Portland metropolitan area are going to be nearly as expensive as Lake Oswego. So if you want to be on the water somewhere, you don't have a Lake Oswego budget, there might be somewhere else for you around the Portland metropolitan area. They're not easy to find online, actually. I did a search for some of the lakes, the ponds, the reservoirs, the body of water that I know that have houses on them in the Portland metropolitan area. They didn't come up very quickly in a Google search. And ironically, some of the reservoirs came up in a search for lakes, and some of the lakes came up in a search for reservoirs. So if you have questions about those things, I invite you to call, text, email, however you want to get in touch. Love to help you find your next home, your forever home, investment home, whatever it may be, somewhere waterfront in the Portland metropolitan area. Again, let me know your thoughts. Give me a like if this video helped you. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, especially around the Portland metropolitan area, make sure and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, take care, everyone.